Well, let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about building balanced meals. So let's start with a basic question of what exactly is a balanced meal? So a balanced plate is going to be a plate that includes foods with nutrients that we need for energy, growth, and daily body function. This is how we fuel our body. How we fuel our body affects how our body will function. And so you can see why that might be important, but let's go a little bit deeper and talk about the fact that a balanced meal gives your body the mix it needs so that you can stay full longer. Well, let's move slides. Uh, so you can stay full longer. You can keep your energy and mood steady, and you can support your muscles and your thought. This will help your brain. Balanced meals help your brain work. So today we're talking more about everyday nutrition. We're talking about food for focus and energy, not necessarily for dieting or weight loss, although you may lose weight eating this way, but that's not our focus. If you're thinking about weight loss, a balanced meal plan would be supportive for you in that goal as well. So I have a question for everyone. There's no shame in this. I think I've been guilty. Well, I know I've been guilty of this. I think most people are guilty of this at times, but be honest. Have you ever just grabbed a coffee and called that breakfast? Have you ever grabbed maybe just a donut or just a Coke, even a Diet Coke, bag of chips, anything that you just grabbed it and said, I just need to eat something? Yep, I have been there before also. I've definitely had times when I am too busy for breakfast. Coffee or a soft drink will just have to do. I do this mostly when I'm rushed and I'm out of time. I haven't planned properly, or I've overslept. I needed more sleep. Um, and I want to take care of things, and I just grab something. And I don't really eat a solid breakfast. That is that is sometimes the reality of how we just live. That is sometimes our daily life. And I love the topic of managing our food to fuel our brain and our body for energy, focus, and health, because I think this information helps us and encourages us to plan for a better balance in meals so that we have great outcome during our day. We all need some encouragement so that we can make some better choices. Maybe all of our choices, we're not looking for perfection. Maybe all of our choices are not great, but how about some better choices? So when we talk about balanced meals, we're talking about wanting energy and focus and health. All of these three are intertwined. When your body has energy, it's better you're able to focus. That's better for your overall health. They're all intertwined. No one of these stand alone. Sometimes you can do things that are more helpful for each of them, but they all go together hand in hand. So when we look for a balanced meal, we're looking for choices that give us energy, focus, and better health. So when we're talking about balanced foods, we're really talking about food groups. And we want food groups in the right way. These are just categories that put similar foods together based on what they give your body. Each group has a different job. Your body works best when you eat from several groups of the several different groups at the same meal. So not just one food group all the time, or not just one food group at a meal. That's how you get energy, strong muscles and bones, and brain health. A lot of people only eat carbs at a meal. It's like breakfast cereal or noodles for dinner, and then wonder why they're tired or hungry again. It's usually that other food groups are missing. So let's briefly go over the food groups. So what we're going to have are fruits and vegetables, which are also called color. Look at how colorful those are. We're going to have protein, which is our builder. Protein helps build muscle. we have what we're going to call grains and starches. This would what a lot of people would call this carbs, and we'll talk about that just a little bit. And oils or fats. We need a little bit of oil and fat, and we can incorporate a little bit of dairy if that suits you. Not dairy doesn't suit everybody, but if it does, you want to incorporate a little, just a little bit during with your food groups. Okay, so let's start by talking about fruits and vegetables. Okay, that's going to be our color. And so fruits and vegetables are where we get a lot of our vitamins and fiber. They help your body fight sickness, and they keep digestion moving. They keep your eyes and your skin and your heart healthy, especially non-starchy vegetables like broccoli and spinach and zucchini. Uh, these are low in calories, but high in nutrients. So you can eat a lot of them. So your color matters. So the vegetables we want to eat most often are going to be broccoli, spinach, greens, collard greens, green beans, tomatoes, bell peppers, all of those colorful things that are everybody says are healthy for us. And so you know about those. And we just want to try to make those flavorful so that you will incorporate them into your diet. Fruits are also great. Fruits give us natural sweetness plus fiber. So if you eat a piece of candy, yes, you get sweetness, but it's not natural. Um, it's usually from the factory and it's got chemicals in it, but it also does not have any fiber. So when we eat a candy bar, we get something sweet, but we do not get any fiber, and our bodies need fiber. So fruits you want to eat most often are going to be fruits like apples or oranges, berries, bananas, grapes, and melons. Those are fruits we know, easy fruits to eat. Um, Fiber slows down the sugar when you take it in, so it helps your body process that sugar. So if you eat just flat out sugar like a candy bar, there's no fiber in it to help your body process that sugar efficiently. And so what we want to do is try to eat as much vegetable as we can, and then also some fruit with our meals. So the color rule is that the more color you have on your plate, the more nutrients you get. That's why they say have a really colorful plate, because color comes out with different nutrients. So if you have a purple eggplant and a red bell pepper and green broccoli or green Brussels sprouts, that is adding a variety of color to your plate, and they all bring something different to your body. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about carbohydrates. Now, fruits and vegetables fall under carbohydrates, but some of these fruits like broccoli and spinach and greens and all of those good uh, nutritious vegetables, the non-starchy vegetables, we'll call them, they have uh, lower carbohydrates amounts. They're a lower carb food. You see that a lot on social media about low carb or high carb or whatever it is. Now, fruits, because they have sugar, have a little bit more carbohydrate in them. And that's okay. We need carbohydrates, but we don't classify these vegetables and fruits as carbohydrates usually because they are either low in carbohydrates or they're bringing something else to the table like fiber. So that brings us to a starchy versus non-starchy question. Okay, so starchy things are like potatoes, um, rice, but rice is a grain, things that uh, are higher in calories and have more, they convert more to sugar in your body. So your non-starchy vegetables are going to be things like uh, salads and broccoli and tomatoes, the things we've already talked about above that are non-starchy. They're low in calories, but they fill you up. These are great for weight control because they bring a lot of nutrients, but they don't bring a lot of calories. And then starchy vegetables like corn and potatoes, possibly even peas. Beans could be considered starchy, but they're not a vegetable, they're a legume. And so these give more energy, but should be counted with the grain and starch group. We move those to a different group because they have more calories. But we're going to leave the fruits here. I know it's a little confusing, but let's just go with it for simplicity's sake so that we can fill our plate. So we want our plate to have vegetables and fruit if possible. And also, we're going to cover grains and starches. Now, this is a group like, oh, this is where fuel comes from. Sorry. Our fuel and energy uh, comes from the grain and starch family. These are foods like whole grain rice and pasta, bread and tortillas. You hear people talk about that, grains are bad, and they may be. You have to do what is right for your body. But what I will tell you is that if you're going to eat a grain, try to make it a whole grain. Um, so these whole grains here, if you get a whole grain, rice in itself is a whole grain. Pasta, you've got to look at your packaging. Same thing with bread and same thing with tortillas. Uh, you have oatmeal and grits and cereal that fall under this. Potatoes, corn and peas, you're going to count them here. Potatoes, corn and peas might actually be vegetables, but they are going to fall under our grains and starches uh, plan for our plate. And possibly crackers and pasta and noodles. You definitely don't want to overdo any of this. So let's talk about what is whole versus what is refined. So when we say choose whole grains, uh, we want to talk about things that still have a lot of fiber and vitamins intact because they will keep you fuller longer and they won't spike your blood sugar as much. So it says brown rice here. This could also be white rice. I think both white and brown have benefits. Whole wheat bread, whole oats, or corn tortillas. Reading your labels. We'll have a class on reading the labels next year. So you'll want to watch out for that. But we do want to know how to read the labels so that we can figure out what's in the bread that we buy so that we can make sure it is whole grain and with not a lot of preservatives. But let's talk about refined grains. This is going to be white bread. It says white rice, but I'm going to go back and say white rice can still count under your whole grains because it is actually a whole grain. It's just been processed differently. And pastries. Um, these breads have been refined to remove parts, meaning they don't have as much fiber, they don't have as much vitamins to make them a fine, white, light, and fluffy thing to eat, usually. These digest faster in your system and can make your blood sugar go up and then down. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit about how we don't want our blood sugar to spike and crater and spike and crater. That is hard on our system to be able to meet our goals of having strength and uh, focus and health, energy, focus, and health. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about proteins. Proteins will also be part of your plate. Proteins are your builders and fixers. These help you build muscle. They help repair tissue. These would help your immune system stay strong, and they can even help your hormone levels. So your protein, let me catch up with the slides. So repairs tissues, keeps your immune system strong. So let's look at some options on your protein. These are going to be obviously your meat, your chicken, your beef, your turkey, fish, eggs. I'm going to point out eggs, especially because they're just so good for you. Tuna, but this could also include what we're going to call dairy, which is yogurt or cheese. But these all typically can cross over. We talked about how potato is a vegetable, but we're going to include it under our grains and starches classification. Well, yogurt and cheese are dairy. but we're going to also include them in our proteins because they do contain protein. And so if you're having a snack or something, you could add that in as part of your protein to get that protein part of your plate. And also, if you want plant-based proteins, beans and lentils, peas, tofu, edamame, it looks like a little bean. It's a soybean. Peanut butter or other nut butters, those are all great sources of protein as well. So if you only eat carbs, you're going to get energy, but you're not going to get good building blocks. That's why in a balanced meal, you should almost always have some kind of protein. Because it not only builds muscles, it helps build skin and hair and nails, blood, and like we talked about, immunity cells. Especially kids and teens need it because they're still growing. Uh, Protein also helps you stay full. So that's another one of those things. Really, these grains and starches, you get hungry faster. That's why we want to add all these things in. So if you only ever eat toast for breakfast, you're going to get hungry faster, quite a bit faster. But if you eat eggs with your toast or peanut butter with your toast, you're going to stay fuller longer and focus better. Okay, so let's talk about dairy a little bit. Um, Dairy is going to be, of course, milk, yogurt, and cheese. And the main job of dairy is to build calcium and protein and to build strong bones and teeth. Um, Again, your kids are still growing, and so this group really matters. Uh, if you can't have dairy, you can use some fortified plant milks or yogurt alternatives. But if you can have dairy, you want to include some of it because it does play a vital role in building all of the things that we're looking for: energy, focus, and health. And our last component is our helper. And both of these are helpers because dairy also will help bring flavor, but also fats and oils will bring flavor as a helper, but they also help your brain, hormones, and skin, and they help you absorb vitamins. So having a little fat and oil is not a bad thing. You don't want to overdo it, but you also don't want to underdo it. But also these things add flavor. And so in this group is going to be uh, olive oil or avocado oil. It could even be butter or ghee, which is a really good choice because ghee is a butter which the milk fats are taken out. And so it provides the butter without some of the other things that you might not be able to tolerate. But use good quality, things that come from uh, God food, not man food. So when you think about that, olive oil is great. I don't love vegetable oils, even though they have the word vegetable in it. The processing of those is not great. So you want to look for oils that are a little bit easier on your system that help things. Even an avocado, peanut butter, or any of your nut butters, you see how we're crossing over. So peanut butter and your nut butters are going to count under protein and they're going to count under fats and oils. Nuts and seeds, same thing. They could count under both because they're bringing both with them. Now, fish like salmon also has fat. So does tuna. And so you can see where, okay, you may have a fatty protein and that you don't need to add a fat with that. Um, you've got that covered. So fat has more than double the calories of carbs and protein. So you don't want big amounts. You want a little bit at each meal if you can, but not a giant deep fried plate. Okay, so let's talk a minute about blood sugar. Why don't we just eat any of the groups we want to at a time? All grains and starches, all vegetables, or all protein. Um, it's because we want balance in our body. And so balanced meals help control how fast sugar will enter the blood. Blood sugar is the amount of sugar in your bloodstream or glucose in your bloodstream, same thing. And your body uses this as a quick fuel. But when you eat only carbs like juice, soda, candy, white bread, noodles, donuts, chips, all of the things that we know not to eat, your blood sugar shoots straight up and then drops down. We call this a spike and a crash. And this makes you tired, unfocused, and hungry fast. I mean, you may not be hungry for a little bit, but you're going to be hungry a lot faster. So we don't want this spike and crash, spike and crash. And so when you're eating a lot of those quick sugar carbs, meaning they may not be sugar, but white bread turns to sugar very quickly. Um, and things that are, any kind of pastry or donut or candy bar or anything like that turns to sugar very fast because of the tiredness, the lack of focus, and how fast you get hungry. But if you eat a balanced meal with carbs, protein, fiber, and a little healthy fat, uh, you get those carbs get digested more slowly. So let me repeat that a different way. So when you eat a balanced meal of vegetables, protein, a grain and starch, and some fat, your carbs digest more slowly. The blood sugar will rise slowly and lower slowly instead of sharply. So steady blood sugar equals steady energy. It equals steady mood and steady focus. Kids and adults do better at school, at work, and with behavior when their blood sugar is not jumping all over the place. So you can see why if you send your kids off to school and they just had a sugary cereal breakfast, it affects how their brain can receive the new material. They can't focus as well, they're hyper, they need activity, and then they get hungry faster. Over time, a balanced meal also helps protect your body from having to pump out a lot of insulin all day long. That gets into all the insulin stuff, and so we won't get into knee deep stuff there. But the short answer is we balance our meals to keep our blood sugar steady, and we keep our blood sugar steady so we can feel and function better. I'm going to repeat this. When you eat mostly simple carbs, like white bread, a big bowl of pasta, candy or soda without protein, your blood sugar rises fast. If the rise is fast, the drop is often very fast also, pretty much always. It's a spike and a crash. That up and then down pattern can make you feel sleepy, shaky, hungry again, and craving more sugar. We don't want that. We don't want you to crave more sugar. When blood sugar stays steadier, your energy, focus, and mood stay steadier too. The way to keep it steady is to slow the sugar down. Eat your carbs, meaning your grains or your starchy things, and sometimes even your fruit with a protein, with the fiber from the vegetables and a healthy fat. Let's talk about an example. An apple is fine, but an apple with peanut butter lasts a lot longer and balances your blood sugar. Beans, whole grains, vegetables, and protein foods slow digestion, so glucose enters the bloodstream more slowly. This prevents the crash and that makes people irritable and reaching for more coffee, more snacks, more junk. And over time, balanced meals are the simplest way to protect energy and mood. So let's go back to the big graph. Okay, blood sugar is never a straight line. It is going to fluctuate. It goes up after we eat, and that's normal. But what we want are small, gentle hills, not spikes into the red zone, not crashes down below. And starting our day off is an important part of this. A balanced meal like eggs, toast, and fruit creates a slower, smoother rise. And that's what we're aiming for. Balanced meals, steadier blood sugar, better energy, focus, and mood. Okay, let's start with a basic here. This is called the power of three. The power of three framework is for every snack or meal to include a protein, a fruit or vegetable, and healthy fats. This is the formula for creating stable blood sugar and focus. This is the foundation. And if you have a balance of these macronutrients, we're not going to talk about macronutrients, but if you have a balance of these things, it's going to send signals to your brain that you've had enough food, you have what you need, and it decreases your cravings for a while, especially for sugar. So when we want to balance, your meal should be balanced with protein and carbohydrates, which is going to be, let's see, I think we're going to talk about complex versus simple carbohydrates, but we may save that for next time. But starchy versus non-starchy. So you really want your special complex carbohydrates and your non-starchy vegetables. So complex meaning whole grain, not white bread. Whole grain bread, not white bread. This is your whole grains. It's your fruits that have a lot of fiber and substance to them. Your non-starchy vegetables, which are your broccoli and your Brussels sprouts and your cauliflower. But why do we want this? Because this is our formula for creating stable blood sugar. So let's talk about the plate a little bit. Oh, but before we talk about the plate, let me cover a little bit more right here. Um, because I wanted to note again that protein helps keep you full. And it also helps those brain chemicals that regulate your appetite. And then when you have fiber coming in those non-starchy vegetables and your good whole fruits, and some of your whole grains, then the fiber's job is to expand the stretch signals in your stomach. These are the ones that tell your brain that it's full. Fiber fills you up. It is fiber's volume that stretches your stomach out. And then it's the healthy fats that help feed your brain as well, because our brain does need both carbohydrates and healthy fats. Even if you have a simple carbohydrate, that's fine. If you grab something and you're in a hurry and it's not that healthy, okay, don't just give up for the day. Come back to this so that your body can readjust. It's the fats that help you absorb these vitamins, these other vitamins that are essential for your energy. So what you don't want is a really high carbohydrate that's put with a fat, which is like what are most of our cookies and treats and donuts and all those things. Those are made with a lot of sugar, fat, flour, all of that refined. So they don't have a lot of value as far as vitamins and fiber. They're just something to grab and they make us hungrier. Okay, so just a quick look at the plate. Okay, here is a plate diagram we're going to look at two diagrams. This is our basic formula for creating a balanced meal. This is a really simple way to estimate your balance. Half of your plate should be vegetables and fruit, but mostly vegetables. You don't have to limit yourself on vegetables, but just know that half of your plate should be vegetables and fruit. And then a quarter of your plate should be protein, and a quarter of your plate can be grains and starches. And then you can add some healthy fat as well. Let's look at another diagram of this. This is I like this diagram a little bit better because you can see, oh, It's a little bit off there. Sorry about that. That vegetables and fruits are half your plate, but vegetables are the majority of that half. Fruits shouldn't be half. Vegetables and fruit. If you don't have any fruit, maybe you could eat a little piece of fruit for dessert, or you could add in something else like you could add in a little bit more starch. That's not ideal. The fruits bring so much to the table. So then a quarter of your plate, of course, are whole grains and starches. And then a quarter of your plate is your healthy protein. You want to be hydrating. We'll have another class on the importance of hydrating and drinking water. And then, of course, you can add those healthy oils and fats to help your plate taste better. But what it does also is it helps your body receive all of these nutrients better. It's a win-win. Okay, so let's take a little quiz. I want to ask you which of these breakfasts is going to be the very best for your energy. So the first one is a Greek yogurt, yogurt that doesn't have any added sugar, let me say, some fruit with some granola, nuts, and seeds on the top, and little peanut butter on there. Or a whole grain piece of toast with some jelly, or a bowl of cereal with whole milk. So what do you think would be the very best? Okay, number one is our best combination. It has everything in there. It has our protein, it has our fiber with the fruit, it has our healthy fats. And so when it has that Greek yogurt has protein in it. So yogurt is also a protein. But you're also gaining your nuts and seeds, which are going to have some protein along with your peanut butter. They're also going to have some healthy fat in them. Your nuts and seeds and peanut butter have fat. Your Greek yogurt may have fat, depending on what you've bought. We're not saying that you should never have toast with jelly and you should never have cereal. Food is meant to be enjoyable, and sometimes we enjoy toast and we want to do that. I think an 80-20 rule is usually a good principle to live by. 80% being the number one breakfast here, and 20% maybe the options 2 and 3 or similar things. 80% being, yes, we feel like we've had a good, healthy, balanced meal, and 20% that we did what we could or we did what we wanted to. This way, you mainly have balanced meals, but you're not depriving yourself of some things that you enjoy. But I do want you to pay particular attention in the mornings because the morning is the most important time for setting the tone for your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So studies have shown that if you have a breakfast like number 2 or 3, then you're more likely to have blood sugar crashes for the whole rest of the day. Even if you eat quite stable or balanced meals the rest of the day, it still affects your meals, what you have first thing in the morning. So if you're going to get any meal right, I would try to make it breakfast so that you're getting that protein, those grains, a fruit, and a fat. You may not get all of these. I mean, there's not a vegetable here. There's going to be times when you're just combining at least 2 or 3 items from the different food categories so that you get balance. Okay, so let's talk about building again. Step one is you're again going to pick a fuel. You need energy, and that's going to be your carbohydrate, which is your grain or your starch. And don't think because, well, I need the most energy, so I'm going to eat mostly grain. That is not the way it works. We need a little bit of this on our plate, but not the majority of the plate. That will lead to those spikes and those crashes. So whatever you call it in your head, you want to think, okay, what's going to give me some energy? And also, as you think about what's going to give you energy, retrain your brain so that your brain doesn't think, oh, it's that candy bar, because it's not. Okay, step 2, add a builder. Okay, this is your protein. And this is what's going to help your body repair and stay strong. This is an easy piece that most people forget, and it's a piece that helps you stay really full. Okay, now step 3 is you're going to add color, and that's your vegetables and your fruits. These give you vitamins, minerals, and most importantly, they give you fiber. They help your body to work better and to help slow down how fast the fuel hits your bloodstream. And step 4, if it's not already in one of those other items, like peanut butter has fat, add a helper. And this is going to be something from the dairy category or the fat or oil category. Not a lot, just a little bit, because this will help you absorb those vitamins and help you stay satisfied. It also just brings a lot of flavor to food so that you enjoy all of the other categories even a little bit more. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about fuel, a builder, a color, and a helper. That's the whole system. We don't want to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. You do not have to hit all 4 every single time. Can you get 3 at a meal? That would be balance. If you can get 4, that's great. What we don't want is a meal that's just one group, like all carbs. That's when you get the bad crashes. Okay, so in this situation, if we have a breakfast, we have fuel, which is our whole grain piece of bread. We have a builder, which are our eggs. And maybe you've cooked those eggs in a little bit of butter. That could be your helper. Um, and then some color, maybe a fruit. This is good breakfast. And so the the helper may be maybe a little bit of something on your piece of bread, your toast. Is that a little bit of butter? Not a lot. A little bit of butter to cook your eggs in, or some other healthy oil that you have, avocado oil. Maybe you've put, instead of with this, you didn't put any butter, but you add a slice of avocado to help it. Okay, let's look at another one. What if you had a bowl of rice? There we go. That's our fuel. That's our grain. And we have a builder, some chicken breast, which is our protein to help us stay full. And then we're going to add some broccoli for color. Okay, when you look at this is not complicated. This is a very simple meal. You can cook all of this, almost all of this ahead of time. You can cook rice well ahead of time. You can keep chicken breast in the freezer. Same thing with broccoli. You can even use frozen broccoli that you've warmed up in the microwave. And maybe you put a little bit of butter on it. Maybe you put a little bit of olive oil on it after it's done. Certainly some garlic and spices would help that. We're not talking about very much spice today, but spices really add a lot of flavor to your food without adding a lot of calories or carbohydrates. And also, a lot of times, spices can bring minerals or vitamins that we haven't even thought of. Okay, so let's look at one more. Let's say you have some whole grain crackers as your fuel, and you have maybe some salmon as your builder. Of course, salmon also has some fat in it, but you also have a colorful, beautiful salad. And you can put lots of different things in your salad to make it more colorful and more beautiful. Some onions and carrots and bell pepper, olives and mushrooms. And so some of those things might bring fat in like the salmon does, but you could also add a salad dressing as your helper. So you'd get some good, maybe olive oil or make a salad dressing out of Greek yogurt that has some fat in it. Oh, we do have one more. Sorry. Um, okay, what about if we did some spaghetti with meatballs? Okay, picture this in your mind that this picture is whole grain spaghetti and not quite so much. Um, you really want those noodles to be a fraction of that, maybe a quarter of that amount. That's a lot of pasta, and that will spike and crash your blood sugar. But look, if you put a bunch of vegetables with it, what if you had a great plate of sauteed vegetables with a little bit of noodles in them, whole grain, and some meatballs on top with some nice meat sauce. That's a delicious meal. You're using your helper in this situation to add flavor to those vegetables so that you don't think, oh, that's so dull, or that doesn't have any flavor. They do have flavor, but the some kind of fat will bring that out. Okay, so um, another way to think about this when you sit down to eat, you want to ask yourself, what's missing? Do I have an energy food? That's usually not very hard. Your energy foods are going to be the ones with your grains and your starches. And so that's the one that's the easiest, and we usually go to that. But you do want to make sure you include it. You don't want to do without it. Do you have a protein? And do you have a color? So you want an energy food, a protein food, and a color food. And so if the answer to one of those is no, can you add something? That's what meal building is. And this works for everything. This works for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. The pattern doesn't change. You don't need a special plan. You just repeat this pattern and you make it interesting by trading things in and out for one another. Okay, so let's talk about some more examples of what you might eat during the day. So for breakfast, you might have eggs, whole grain toast, and fruit. So you've got protein from your eggs, your toast is whole grain, you've got fruit from fiber, add a little bit of cheese and avocado if you want a healthy fat, which you do. Oatmeal with peanut butter and banana, that sounds delicious. So you get your grains from the oats, and so that's your energy. Your peanut butter is your protein and your fat, and your banana is your color. That's your fruit. So this way you stay fuller longer. And we talked about yogurt earlier. Adding granola and berries to your yogurt, toss in some nuts for some healthy fat. That's going to make a better breakfast than your sugary cereal. Um, Even a breakfast taco. If you will get a whole grain corn tortilla, or even a low carb tortilla, that might work. Put some egg and some beans and cheese on it, maybe some salsa to add in those vegetables. It makes an easy, fast thing to take on the run. And if you're in a rush, how about peanut butter on a piece of whole grain bread? Add an apple in, and you're good to go. That's not perfect, but that's balanced. We're looking for better choices, not perfection. Okay, for lunch, maybe you might try a turkey sandwich on whole bread, whole grain. I'm going to keep emphasizing that. Put some lettuce and tomato on it, some carrot sticks, and some fruit. You might even get some hummus to dip those carrot sticks in. That makes it also a nice snack. Some hummus. Hummus is a uh, a dip made out of chickpeas, and so it has some protein. It's like a bean dip of sorts. Tastes like a bean dip. And so it's really delicious. And that's a good, healthy way to get a dip in. Same thing, a bean and cheese burrito on a healthy tortilla with some cucumber slices and maybe an orange. Beans are great because they give you both protein and fiber. They're one of those crossover items because they are protein, but they're also, uh, they would be something high in fiber and kind of starchy, but we're not going to talk about that right now, but not to worry about. Okay, so let's say you can take leftovers, which I love, leftover rice, chicken, and frozen vegetables. You throw it all together, add some soy sauce or some salsa, a little bit of olive oil, or some maybe some toasted sesame oil. Yum, and that's delicious. And of course, we like did a salad and adding in all those vegetables, um, or a snacky lunch with cheese cubes, whole grain crackers, some grapes, carrot sticks and hummus, like I talked about earlier. That's actually very balanced. It just looks very snacky. And what about dinner? Okay, we've talked about chicken and rice with broccoli. That's awesome. That's simple. And you can change things out for that chicken, rice, and broccoli. You could add ground beef. You could add ground turkey, which is great. Tacos, same thing. Ground beef with turkey or beans. You could put both in there. A good healthy tortilla and vegetables and cheese. adding some salsa. I love a stack up, which is kind of similar. But if you're like having guests and you don't know, okay, who's gluten free and who's low carb and all these different things we've got going on in our diets, just make stack ups. And I make bowls of rice and beans, taco meat, lettuce and tomatoes, olives, guacamole, and salsa. And then everybody makes their own bowl. And that way everybody takes what they want, but they have the option to be fully balanced. We looked at spaghetti. I love the option in spaghetti to add zoodles, which is zucchini noodles instead of uh, regular noodles. And then you could add maybe a piece of whole grain bread with that, or if you had a salad, you could put croutons on that, and that would be a good option. So also, frozen vegetables with a stir fry with chicken or tofu, noodles or rice, and a little bit of oil for your healthy fat. Frozen vegetables are great for this and really super easy. And a baked potato bar. I think we've all done that, but just adding in a lot of the different things that you could put on a potato to make it a whole, a balanced meal. Because, I mean, even broccoli on a baked potato is really yummy. It tastes great. Okay, let's run through a couple of snacks. Apples and peanut butter, uh, carrots uh, with beans or hummus, yogurt and fruit. We've kind of talked about a lot of these. A cheese stick with some whole grain crackers and some grapes. So you're adding in, a lot of people have cheese and crackers, but add in something with maybe some fiber, or a smoothie made with milk or yogurt with fruit and peanut butter. All of these have at least two food groups. So you're at least getting two and often three, and you want to try to shoot for at least three, and the goal would be four. Okay, so let's go over it again. Where is your protein? That's what you're going to ask. Where is my protein, my builder? What's going to build my muscles? Where is my color? And that's going to be vitamins and nutrients and fiber, lots of fiber. And where is my fuel? And this is going to be a grain or a starch. And should start telling your brain, where is my little bit of fuel? Because you don't want a half a plate or a full plate of fuel. So common pitfalls. Okay, this is going to be things like lonely carbs. Um, these are plain crackers, candy, chips, things that you just grab and eat alone, a whole bag of chips. It doesn't count if you put that whole bag of chips with dip. Um, you want to pair them with a protein, not just a fat, and not a lot of fat. So you want to get that protein in there with your carbs so that there is something to make your stomach feel full and balance that blood sugar. Uh, Eating low fat sweets. These often have a lot of sugar added to them. So you want to choose whole food carbs, whole food vegetables, whole food fruits, whole food grains, things that you recognize the name of on the labels, plus a protein. And another combination, we've talked about this briefly, huge fat with sugar combo, pastries, donuts, cake, things, excuse me, things like that. Swap this out for a protein and a fiber-rich fruit or vegetable and a small amount of fat. Eating a little from every food group keeps your body happy. It keeps it strong and it keeps it ready to learn. It's that energy, focus, and health. You are in charge of making your healthy choices every day. And your body's going to thank you. And I want to thank you for coming and showing up today to learn about this. You can do this. We'll have more classes. We'll repeat this class periodically. So be sure and come back and let us know in the chat how we can do better. We'll be bringing on more content and working on making that content interesting. And we look forward to seeing you at our next class. Thank you.